Hi, welcome to Punchline Talks, the Business Breakfast Briefers. I'm Mark Owen, and each week I'm joined by a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happened in their own individual business and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. But before I start, I just want to thank our fantastic sponsors and wonderful people at Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors, and we really couldn't do the show without them. Okay, let's meet the panel. Today we have Katie Johnson, owner of NMD of Casa Solutions Limited. She started the company in 2022 and specialises in providing key worker accommodation and social housing for the NHS. She started the business has really taken off over the last 18 months, and so we'll find out all about that and the marketplace as well, especially about HMOs. I'm hearing a lot about that in Gloucester at the moment. We have Luke Freeman. He's the CEO of MF Freeman, group of family-owned companies specialising in residential property development, retirement schemes, commercial property. The group has over 100 staff and approximate turnover of 37 million. We'll find out about the latest developments from Luke and what his views are on the government housing targets to build 1.5 million homes in 5 years. Is that achievable? We'll find out his thoughts. We have Clare Marchant DBE, Vice Chancellor of the University of Gloucestershire. The university is split between 3 sites, employs over 1,000 staff, has 9,000 students and a turnover of 90 million. The university is all going through a bit of a tough time at the moment, so we'll find out Clare's plans to ride out the storm. Also, really looking forward to hearing her views on how the city centre campus is developing. Really exciting. I really think it's going to be a game changer for the city. And finally, we have Laura Holloway. She's a co-owner of the Stroud Wine Company. They opened in 2017 and provides customers with the best and most interesting, diverse selection of wines you can find. And I met actually Claire when I was delivering my Punchline magazines out and about. So Laura, sorry, when I was delivering magazines out and about. So, okay, let's see what's making the headlines. Okay, let's have a look. The Metro. Teenage killer en masse, says the Metro. The Daily Express. En masse, teen accused of dance class triple murder. The Daily Mirror. Kia, our take on far-right thugs. The Daily Telegraph. Starmer blames riots on right-wing plotters. The Guardian. Police urge to step up action amid plans for 19 more far-right protests. However, the one that's really caught my eye is the right-hand side. Ice sheets 10 degrees centigrade above normal in the Antarctic heat wave. The Times. Russia in biggest prisoner exchange since the Cold War. The Financial Times. Bank of England is first rate cut for 4 years as confidence and inflation mounts. I wonder if Rishi is ruined the day he called the election. The Eye, interest rate cut too late to stop the budget squeeze. The Daily Mail, say goodbye to your doctor's appointment. And the Daily Star, will send Noah's Ark to the moon. And the one paper that's missing is the Sun. Right, okay, let's talk to the panel, please. Thanks ever so much for joining us. Claire, I'm going to start with you this morning. What's your pick of your papers today, please?
I think for me, there's a few stories around skills and still waiting for this government really to sort of articulate its strategy broadly around skills. I'm a massive fan of apprenticeships and I'd love to know what their plans are around that. There was some wonderful stuff around midlife boot camps in Devon and Cornwall, 2,000 people going on these midlife boot camps. And that's the sort of stuff that I'd like to see nationally sponsored. So good on Devon and Cornwall for starting that. And it's certainly something we at Gloucestershire are starting to really think about with the Golden Valley development between Cheltenham and Gloucester. How do we get people who return to this part of the world to really think about what their next career is if they're in their 30s and 40s and how we retrain. So there's a few things nationally that I'd like to see that aren't quite there, but locally there are good stories, and Devon Cornwall's a good example of that. But even within Gloucestershire, you've got Stroud College doing stuff on apprenticeships. There's an article as well around Hartbury and its veterinary centre. So there's some good stuff going on, but it's an indication that there's probably some stuff to come from government around the broader skills narrative. And then obviously, university funding, as you mentioned in your intro.
Have you got any other stories as well?
Yeah, I mean, one of the, in terms of, I suppose for me, the big and you did mention it in the front line, the front pages there, is the and it's just such a good news story, is the US citizens returning. And I don't know if you watched that on the news this morning, but the emotion, 2000 days one of the ex-US Marine has been away, and I just thought it was a nice bit of good news when actually from across the pond we don't get much of that at the moment. So that for me was, I suppose, a real highlight in terms of a human story that I found interesting. I was going to talk about Angela Rayner's speech, but I think given the panel we've got today, I really think that there's probably other people that can talk about what we might see in terms of planning. But as a university, we're a real place shaper. So actually, what happens with planning and enabling housing development does have an impact on us, both in terms of people going on to jobs, but what we do with the land and the facilities we've got.
Okay, thanks ever so much for that, Claire. Laura, let's bring you in next. What have you picked out from the papers?
So this morning, I've picked up the good news story, I suppose, of Andy Murray kind of ending his career. And whilst he didn't win a medal at the Olympics this time round, I think the whole country got behind him. And, I think it's fantastic to be able to support kind of, the competition and just kind of getting behind him in the kind of as he was bowing out of professional tennis. So as a family, we've all been sitting around watching the Olympics this week, and it's inspired my children. And I really hope that it's going to continue to inspire children, across the country. There is obviously a problem with kind of obesity and getting children active and adults as well. So I really hope that, just these 2 weeks of kind of being able to watch the Olympics and, it might inspire us. I personally play with the Netball Fun League, which is set up in Gloucester and Cheltenham and in Stroud, and it encourages kind of adults to get involved in sports, which I think is a fantastic kind of local business. But with regards to this article, it's the long goodbye. Murray ends his career not in glory, but with adulation. And it starts, old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light, wrote Dylan Thomas in 1947. I just really felt that, despite not getting to the medal stages and being able to continue through the rounds, that was just really kind of inspiring, and when it had everyone at the edge of their seats. I just think it's fantastic, and he's been a fantastic sportsman. So yeah.
It was very emotional, wasn't it? I didn't watch a lot of the Olympics, but I did actually turn that bit on when it was really, really, really charged, wasn't it? And I watched some of the gymnastics yesterday, and oh my God, the skill level is just awesome. Have you all had a chance to watch some of the Olympics? Luke, have you watched some of it? Have you got a chance, just very briefly?
Yeah, I watched not much of it, but I did watch a bit of the mountain biking and the I think it's the fast walking, isn't it? They were going 6-minute miles. So I thought, blimey, that's quicker than my running.
What about you, Katie? Have you had a chance to watch some of it?
Not yet, but track and field is like my favourite. So that's coming up like now, really, this weekend.
I know, can't wait for that. Can't wait for that. Okay, let's bring you in, Luke. What have you picked out from the papers? Thanks ever so much for that, Laura.
So I looked in, the thing that caught my eye was in the I newspaper on the headlines, which you brought up earlier. Interest rate cut, too late to stop budget squeeze. So that's quite interesting. It was already built into the upcoming budget. And also UK house prices rise at fastest rate since 2022, which is obviously positive for our business, and we also positive for our business the rate cut of 0.25%, because that will give some optimism for people buying new houses. I think some people have been sat waiting for the interest rate drops.
But I think business as a whole has sort of just treaded water during the election. A lot of business people I was talking to weren't really making that sort of final decision just to see how the land would lie. On the interest rate cuts, do you think it will make a big difference to your business, Luke?
I think there are some I think the market's picking up anyway. I think the housing market has improved. Like since the last 2 years, it's been very slow. High interest rates, which causes a problem for house builders and also home buyers, because mortgage rates are going up. But I think the sign that it's coming down and it's turned, I think would be positive for the market. And also the fact that they're actually predicting there's not going to be huge rate cuts. So I think people realise that now is the time to get on and buy a house. Like those rates are going to level out. So hopefully people have been sat there waiting for 2 years, so the market's picking up. And I think actually the house price is rising. That puts a sort of a imperative onto buying a new house and getting on with moving.
Yeah, that's wrong. I don't think they're going to come down much further, isn't it? That's what the Bank of England was saying. Or not won't come down to the sort of fantastic levels that we've enjoyed over the last 15 years. Thanks so much for that, Luke. Okay, Katie, great to have you on the show again. What have you picked out from us from the papers, please?
Yeah, so I've picked out a story from what we've got here, Daily Mail. So NHS dentistry crisis forces 1 in 20 Britons to seek care abroad. So there's just huge difficulty like finding and signing up with NHS dentists, and also the costs. So I read a story about one guy that typically goes to Greece like twice a year, and in that he goes to a dentist out in Greece as well. So yeah, so I think there's like an issue there that needs to be resolved somehow. It's probably just lack of dentists. My background, I used to work for the NHS and I worked at King's College Hospital in London. Unfortunately, that used to be like a training school for dentists. So I used to get free dentistry care. Part of one of the perks working there. I had quite a few treatments on the NHS, but and then by trainee dentists, so they were like, so that's quite interesting. But yeah.
Is the article saying? Sorry, is the article saying it's cheaper to go to Greece and than to?
No, so that was just a story where they interviewed the guy that's been going. Yeah, he mentioned.
Sorry, Katie, your sound's gone slightly. Sorry.
Oh, so yeah, no, it's just a guy that's been going to Greece. It was just a guy that they'd interviewed. He's been going there because he said it's cheaper, and also he can get appointments. So, but I guess if it's private, then yeah.
Okay. What else have you picked out from us then, please?
That's one story. So the other story is, again, with my London link, mayhem on no loo train. So this is from the Daily Express, page 11. So a number of passengers were stranded outside or near Paddington Station for up to 2 hours. And on the Elizabeth line, which is like, the government spent like £1 billion or something building that, there's no toilets. And so, passengers were having to like self-evacuate and trying to break doors open just to be able to, escape and use a loo. And some, use the loo or use the seat as the loo. So yeah, I'm not sure which party I would have been in, but I
think I would be smashing down. I think I'd be smashing down the doors as well. Not a problem at all. Thanks ever so much for that, Katie. Really appreciate that. Okay, let's go back over to you, Claire. I'd really like to talk to you about the university. How long have you been in post now?
Sorry, missed that, Mark.
How long have you been in post now at university?
Maybe 9 or 10 months, something like that. It's coming up to a year as we go towards the autumn. So it feels like it's gone really, really quickly, I must be honest.
It must do. And I mean, the universities are going for a really hard time at the moment. We're all reading in the newspapers about falling numbers, the government, obviously rising fees. What's the situation with the University of Gloucestershire at the moment?
Yeah,
I know it's tough.
It's a tough time for the sector, absolutely. And there's a few things driving that. One is a tuition fee that hasn't risen in many, many years. But I think there's a couple of other things that perhaps are equally as detrimental. So certainly the last government, not necessarily this government, and there's been some really positive words from Bridget Phillipson, the new Education Secretary. But the last government, the rhetoric around how much we welcome international students was quite damaging. So, I've spoken to Nigerian, Pakistani, Italian, US students, all of whom there is a different view now of coming to the UK than perhaps 3 or 4 years ago. Now, I think, it's a massive export, UK higher education, something to be proud of. So that's really unfortunate. Plus a couple of policy changes like number of dependents that didn't help as well. So I am hopeful that Bridget Phillipson as the new Education Secretary, there will be a different approach to international students. But there is something else, and I was Chief Exec of UCAS before I was in this role, and this is around, students, and this is UK students' appetite for doing undergraduate degrees, which the number of 18-year-olds, as we know, increases year on year all the way to 2030. So you'd expect more and more students to be coming through for university. But actually the cost of living, I think, is having a detrimental impact just on that appetite. And so things like apprenticeships, like I mentioned earlier, are increasingly popular as a different way to get some of those qualifications. So for Gloucestershire, it's all about making sure we stand out in quite a competitive market, talking about, you know, this is a community feel across Gloucestershire and Cheltenham. It's not a big metropolitan university. And I always say students on open days and their parents and guardians, you know, it's about what's right for you. And for some people, Gloucester and Cheltenham is absolutely the right place for them, because of the place, but also because there's some cracking degrees, you know, that we do as well. So yeah, that's our focus.
What's the most popular degree there at the University of Gloucestershire?
We do. I mean, there's two areas that, in terms of numbers, are massively popular. One is around health and social care, so things like, you know, adult nursing, and the other is around business, so things like our MBAs and stuff like that for both undergraduate and postgraduate. But actually, you know, we've got some of the best geography courses in the country, best journalism, photography. You know, there's some real standout courses in terms of student satisfaction, you know, being in the top 5 across the country. So there's some real nuggets in there as well.
Very quickly, the Debenhams, the university campus in the city, which I'm very excited about, it's getting there, isn't it? Will it be done on time and on budget?
Well, it is getting there, Mark, but as you know, if it was done on time and budget, it probably would already be done by now. You know, I go around probably once every 2 or 3 weeks and show people round and work with our construction company, Morgan Sindall there. I think it's getting more and more exciting. I mean, I have almost daily meetings about it in terms of, but it is an interesting construction, 1930s, 1950s, 60s, you know, burial sites, you know, I don't know if you know, but the history of it is it was also a zoo as well. So there's a lot of findings that perhaps hadn't been anticipated, which have led to some of the delays, but it will be absolutely fantastic, and it will really, together with that whole King Square redevelopment, I think it'll be a game changer for Gloucester and probably Gloucestershire as well in terms of that sort of regional impact.
Without a shadow of a doubt, and the amount of development that's going on in the city at the moment, we've got a breaking story that's going to be launched today, an exclusive of something else that's happening in the city. And I do believe it's on the back of the university and the back of young people coming in. So thanks ever so much for that, Claire. I'm going to go back over to you, Laura. Laura, you've got all those lovely bottles of wine there behind you. Can you tell us, please, a little bit about your business? How long it's been going? You run it with your husband, Richard, don't you?
I do, yes, yeah. So we're a small independent. We've got two shops in Stroud, and there's 4 of us that work here. We trained at Odd Bins, and then we moved here and opened. There wasn't a wine shop in Stroud when we moved here, and you know, Stroud's good, really fantastic for supporting independent businesses. So yeah, we kind of we import wines, and we focus on wines that haven't got representation in the UK. We go out and we choose wines ourselves at vineyards. So early this year I went to Madeira, for example, which was fascinating island, producing some really incredible wines that so you know, we've got a small selection of well, a larger selection now of wines from Madeira. So we like to choose things that are different. For me personally, and well, you know, as a kind of business, we really, you know, I like to, whatever your budget, you know, to give someone something a bit different. So you come in and you ask for, you know, a Sauvignon Blanc, and you know, I find it kind of, yeah, that if someone walks out with something they hadn't thought of, a grape variety from, you know, an Italian grape variety they'd never heard of, and they're willing to try something, then for me that's fantastic. So yeah.
I mean, how do you, is this how you compete with the supermarkets, by offering something completely different and a wide choice?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, in terms of things like craft beer, for example, so we've got a large range of beers here, but you know, that was something that, you know, for 10 years ago, that's where you'd find in independents. And yes, it's something that over time kind of supermarkets have picked up on. But then, you know, I find it kind of, you know, it's our job to then search for something else, and yeah, absolutely. We're in a buying group called the Vindependents. So there's about 50 of us across the UK, independent wine merchants that club together, and it gives us a little bit of buying power against against kind of bigger shops, and we all kind of use our own knowledge and our industry, and we can come together and we meet, which is again fantastic, and we do tastings together. So and Simon and Christy, who work for us, bring different things to the business as well. Simon came from Woodchester Vineyards, and Christy came from Bristol, and he's our kind of spirits and beer man. So we all work together. We're a small team, but it works really well for us. But ultimately we're never going to beat supermarkets on price, but for us it's about the customer experience, wine tastings, and having a personal kind of relationship with our customers.
You're also on a really neat little business park there. Just try to explain to the rest of the panel where you are, where I met you, because it's next to Goosey. Is it Goosey Gander? There's Bailey's Paints on the Stroud Road there.
So we've got this is next to Scumble Goosey and Bailey's Paints, and this will come into kind of the next bit. But we our shop in the centre of town is in Withy's Yard, which is a beautiful little courtyard just off the high street. But as you can imagine, for a business where we're bringing in pallets of wine, it wasn't ideal for getting deliveries down. So we've opened this as a kind of second shop, which makes it easier for customers to come and park outside, and also for drivers to bring off a pallet of wine and leave it outside for us. But also we have tastings here. It's got a garden outside. We have people that come and cook food. We've got Velo Bakery down the road that bring pizzas along after a wine tasting. So it works really, really well.
And it's a really nice looking shop. I just want to say, I really like popping in, seeing you guys. Thanks ever so much for that, Lauren. I just want to say thanks ever so much for letting us always feel so welcome when I pop in there with my magazine as well. Please say hello to Richard for us too. Okay, let's go over to you, Luke. Luke, great to see you again. Thanks ever so much. Business is going well. What's the latest development? Because the last time I saw you, we were in Newnham on 7, weren't we?
Yeah, so we had a tour around Newnham. We finished that development now. We've got a few houses left there, for about 5 left. We're working at Credden Hill, which is 67 units, just on the edge of the MOD camp there, the SAS camp. We've got 35 we're building in Found Hope, and we've got a new scheme coming up in Alderton of 48 properties, 140 at Colford, and another phase at Newnham of 48. So we've got a pipeline of about 300 plots coming up, which sounds really positive, which it is, but the key to success of our company is getting that through the planning process quickly. So we welcome the initiatives being introduced by the new government. We'll see if they make a difference, but we're hoping it does. In our contracting department, we've been busy. We're doing a town centre redevelopment north of Hereford, in Leominster. We've got commercial projects, education projects. So we've been busy in that department. Our earthworks division just done some earthworks on new chicken sheds over by Hartbury College. We've done some work at actually in the college, so that's all good, really. We're busy. We're growing, recruiting at the moment. We brought some apprentices in. We need to bring more people into the industry.
I was going to say about apprentices, actually, because how many apprentices are you looking for, and how many do you normally take on?
Well, last year we worked with Axel, and we brought 2 in. We'd like to do more, because I think the industry as a whole needs to bring younger people into the industry to meet the the labour shortage in the industry and the skills gap. If the government want to build 300,000 homes a year, that's a key part of it. We need to find the people to be able to do it. We've won last year. We won an award for best small house builder. We've recently, due to the number of houses we're building, we got 5-star house builder with the HBF. We're doing an R&D project working with. It's linked to Hartbury College and Innovate UK, looking at collaborating with other companies in the industry to bring forward new products and techniques to improve housing and make them more sustainable and low carbon.
Well, I'm going to ask you really also about the government's plans. So, we've got a new government. They're trying to say that you're going to build 1.5 million homes over the next 5 years. Luke, is that feasible? I don't understand where the bricks are going to come, let alone the actual workforce to do that. I mean, we've got to have a big uplift in apprenticeships, in construction, in everything really,
So
to enable
to
that.
deliver 1.5 million homes over 5 years is, well, that would be the most homes we've seen in our lifetimes. I think in the 60s it got up to 360,000, but since then it's never hit those numbers. I think we're circa 200,000 last year. We do less this year, but I suppose we welcome the ambitious targets, but what can we do to actually make them reality? We use timber frame construction, which we can speeds up the process, which is off-site. We also use precast concrete elements, and the more off-site manufacture you can do, that can improve the supply of homes. We build EPCA rated homes, which are energy efficient, carbon, low carbon. We think the government should actually cut stamp duty for those homes to encourage developers such as us to continue doing that, because it costs more money, and then it leaves it as a choice for the developer rather than doing it through building regulations. And I was pleased to see the HBF put that in some of their initiatives pushed back to the government recently. We also think that, and the HBF are doing this as well, green mortgages for EPCA rated homes. We also think that schemes need to go through the planning process more quickly. I don't think you can make the planning process more simple. Unfortunately, it's got to respect the stakeholders, but what you can do is put more resources into those departments so it gets through the process quicker. We think that I've done my MBA at Gloucestershire University, so support what Claire was saying earlier, and some of my colleagues have also done their MBAs and diplomas, so more training in organisations such as ours to improve productivity. That's going to be a key area to build more houses.
Okay, well, thanks ever so much for that, Luke. A really good oversight of what's happening. I just want to say, by the way, when you showed me around the homes in Newnham 7, what was really impressed me is how you future-proof the houses. So as you get older, I don't know if you know that they can actually knock down walls, and so you can actually end up living downstairs. And they've sort of future-proofed it like that, isn't it? Really clever stuff. Or if you want to put a sort of lift in the house as well, you can do that.
Yeah.
You know, they've sort of built a space in it, so you could turn a cupboard into a lift to go upstairs.
Yeah.
I just thought it was brilliant, mate. Absolutely.
So
sorry. We're going to have to bring Katie in now. Thanks ever so much for that, Luke. Katie, let's talk about your business, please. Can you just give an overview of Casa Solutions, what the company does?
Sure. So I started Casa Solutions out of seeing a need within the NHS. So I've been working for the NHS 13 years, and in the recruitment teams, we were finding many staff couldn't start their jobs because they couldn't find accommodation close to work. Where they were relocating. So that was whilst I was living in London, but obviously I think any trust anywhere probably was going through a similar sort of issue. And our recruitment targets, we were just not being able to meet them because people couldn't find accommodation. So I was able to get onto the NHS entrepreneurship program. As part of that was linked up with a mentor, and he helped me kind of find that within me to start this company. And I relocated back to Gloucester, so obviously I'm a Gloucester girl, born and raised. So I came back to start my company. I formed a partnership with the Gloucestershire Royal Hospital, and have been housing their internationally recruited nurses, and then other staff groups as of when they were travelling to the UK or to Gloucester specifically, and also other care workers as well, just within the wider social care, who often pass through Gloucester. They may be placed in Gloucester for a couple of weeks, I've had a couple of months, etc. And unfortunately, the kind of traditional estate agency model doesn't always cater to our international care workers and those that are flexibly working. So I've kind of seen that need, and I'm trying to plug the gap to kind of assist there, so that we in Gloucestershire do have our healthcare workers and the vacancies are being filled. So in a nutshell, that's what I'm doing.
How many sort of people or how many properties are you looking after at the moment?
At the moment, I'm looking after 6 to 7. There's a student accommodation block that's been on my books that's been needing some renovation. But I've got about 30 rooms or so in total. that I have access to, not all filled at any one time. But yeah, it's been growing. But I think since last time I've been on this call with you, my main focus has been trying to work collaboratively with developers and investors to see if we can try and buy flats or apartments that can be converted into kind of more studio, self-contained units, rather than having shared facilities. So at the moment, I found an investor to joint venture with me. And I've got my first commercial to residential project. We've just had an offer accepted. So I'm really excited about that. So I'm now being able to kind of move forward to not only just managing rooms, but yeah, self-contained units. I've also, over the last 6 months, been speaking to a number of different software providers. And I have a serial entrepreneur, an all-round genius, really, a guy called Rob Clutter, and I'm going to name him here. So I'm hoping he's going to work with me to help me build my own kind of key worker accommodation platform. So I'm seeking to have something like the right move, but for key workers. So, you know, not gatekeeping of property is probably not right word, but basically ensuring that we've got accommodation and flats at affordable prices for key workers to you know, move in and out of, all bills included type of thing.
And that's the big thing, obviously, for Clare and the students that are coming to Gloucestershire. There's so many entrepreneurs out there at the moment looking at property, so many different developments happening. I was talking to someone the other day. The MBOs is a really big thing at the moment. There's a property not far from where I lived. It was a 3-bedroom house. A gentleman called Dave used to own it, sadly passed away. They've now turned it into 6 individual rooms. Now imagine if you got the rental for a house, a 3-bedroom house, probably, what is it, like £900? They're going to get around £600 per room. So as a development or as an investment, you can see. On the flip side, it's taken away from a family home that used to be here in the city centre. So there's this sort of divide. Really interesting what's going on in the market. I've heard from King's Home in particular, there's a lot of flat houses being turned into flats, which again, there's a sort of kickback from that as well. So very interesting marketplace at the moment for that. Thanks ever so much for that, Katie. Really interesting. And to all of you as well. We're kind of running out of time, actually, unfortunately. So we're going to quickly go through the best pick of the punchlines. Luke, I'm going to start with you. What have you picked out from the punchline, please? You've really got to keep it tight, though.
I'm embarrassed to say, sorry, I haven't read the punchline.
That's okay, no worries at all. I'll send the boys round. Claire, what have you picked out from the punchlines, please?
I really like the story about cyber and security and stuff that's coming through. So the opening of the MX was in Punchline just last week. We've got stories on Golden Valley that are dated sort of 2-3 weeks ago. That is going to build and build and build. And I think that is just fabulous for this region. You know, it's going to be one of a kind in the UK. So the Punchline coverage of that ongoing, I think, is incredible.
Thank you very much for that, Claire. Laura, what have you picked out from us?
So this is just relevant to us really as business, in terms of kind of how the parking charges are executed in each town. So this is free parking extended in the Forest of Dean, and essentially they're giving people the first hour free, which I think is excellent. And I'd really like that to see that happen in Stroud, because what happens in Stroud is that people have to pay to park here, but that leaves other towns like Nailsworth, for example, where there's free parking. So for a small independent like us, where people are kind of just popping in, it makes it harder to encourage people into town. And so yeah, I just think that would be great. There is free parking after 2 o'clock, but often people like to get out kind of earlier in the day. And yeah, I think anything that's going to help bring people into the town centre at the moment is really, really positive. So yeah, it's great to see what they're doing in the Forest of Dean.
Okay, thank you ever so much for that. I just want to mention a quick mention of the Cafe The Felts, which is just down the road from you, one of the best cafes around.
We know it well. We work with them actually, yeah.
Oh, do you? Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Katie, what have you picked out from us, please?
Yeah, I picked out the story around the government's instruction to the Low Pay Commission about removing the living wage age gap. So obviously the pros and cons to that. Obviously the profitability for small businesses obviously might be well, is a bit of a concern, but at the same time we need to probably encourage our young adults to get into work, and without the shame of being paid less than, you know, peers that might just be a couple of years older. And, you know, that peer pressure and all of that, and, you know, having less money, it is a bit of a shame, I think. I know some of my younger cousins wouldn't be happy with, you know, my older cousin being paid like £3 more an hour for the same job. So yeah, so there's pros and cons to that story. Or to that.
I totally agree. Unfortunately, I think it's going to rule out a lot of young people. Why hire a 16-year-old when you can get a 21-year-old for the same money, and you've got to teach the 16-year-old all the life skills? But that's my own personal opinion. Obviously, it would be great to pay everybody more money. Anyway, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. My pick of the punchlines this week is actually Alderney business that went bust last week, which is an exclusive story that we had. 400 people have sadly lost their jobs. It's funny, not funny, but the amount of emails I've received about that particular story. But the one that really caught my eye also was the Cheltenham pods that the council are thinking about putting there to help homeless people. Unfortunately, that's all we got time for. I'd just like to thank my fantastic panel. Thank you ever so much, guys, for joining us this morning. A big, massive thank you to our sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors, who are really lovely people as well. And a big thank you to all of you that are watching. If you like the show, please like, share and subscribe. And remember, we'll be back again next week. But until then, it's all in the punchline. Thank you. Bye.